Hi, PerspectiveWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Friday, March 13th. A cold frontal system is approaching the East Coast. We had some decent rainfall in the late night hours going into the early part of the day here on Friday. It looks like showers are winding down now in the I-95 corridor region from D.C. to Philadelphia, pretty much over with, and maybe a couple hours left in New York City with the showers associated with this approaching cold front. Once the front passes through, the winds will pick up this afternoon, gusting up to 30 miles per hour or so out of the west to northwest, and that will usher in colder air for tonight. Skies will clear in the mid-Atlantic region, winds will diminish, and we're setting up for a pretty chilly time period from Saturday through Sunday and even through Monday, all because of a strong cold high pressure system that will be building into the southeastern part of Canada. So after today, it looks like a relatively dry pattern through the upcoming week, and there is a weak disturbance that could cause a few rain or snow showers in the southern part of the mid-Atlantic region later Saturday night into early Sunday. But again, for the most part, dry and chilly for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. I thought we'd kind of take a look ahead here at some kind of a broader picture look at some teleconnection indices, as well as the ensemble run of the GFS in terms of 500 millibar heights throughout North America going forward. Here we'll get kind of an idea of what to expect maybe during the second half of the month of March. And bottom line here is many signs point to the fact that we're not into spring yet. It looks like there will be some cold air outbreaks to deal with in the central and eastern U.S. over the next couple of weeks, not necessarily associated with snow, but indeed there are some cold air outbreaks, and let's talk about some of the reasons why I expect to see an occasional cold air outbreak here in the east right through the month of March. First of all, let's take a look at the Arctic Oscillation. The Arctic Oscillation is a teleconnection index that gives us an idea of the pressure pattern over the North Atlantic, and it's a closely related cousin, the North Atlantic Oscillation. Similar idea that it gives us an idea of what's going on over the North Atlantic. When these two indices go into negative territory this time of the year, that tends to favor the idea that cold air outbreaks will make it all the way into the central and eastern U.S., especially if they stay negative for a sustained period of time. Well, both of these have some signs of going negative over the next couple of weeks. This is the forecast of the Arctic Oscillation. The black line here, right here, represents where we stand right now. The red is the forecast, and there's a series of runs here, and the average of which tends to drive it down from a higher positive to at least neutral, and in some cases here, even on the negative side over the next couple of weeks. Well, now let's take a look at the North Atlantic Oscillation. Same thing here. We have a slight positive right now. The black indicates where the North Atlantic Oscillation resides at the current time, and the red represents the forecast. And again, like the Arctic Oscillation, tends to go down towards the neutral line. Maybe in some cases it could go into negative territory, but over the next couple of weeks, that, like its cousin, the Arctic Oscillation, definitely goes from positive to neutral, perhaps even into slight negative territory. Well, another teleconnection index we've talked about here over the past several weeks, the Eastern Pacific Oscillation, the EPO, and this gives us an idea of what's going on over the North Pacific, over Alaska, and in general over the past winter season, certainly December, January, and February, right into the month of March. It's been basically a upper level trough situated over Alaska with high pressure ridging over the northern Pacific, and the combination of the two resulted in a pretty persistent west to east flow of air across the southern part of Alaska or the northern part of the Pacific into western Canada. That tended to bottle up cold air over Alaska, one of the coldest winters in years in Alaska. In fact, Fairbanks reported its second coldest December, January, and February for the last 44 years. But that cold air was generally bottled up over Alaska during that time period of December, January, and February, partly because the EPO was consistently on the positive side. When it is negative, that tends to favor the building of high pressure ridging over Alaska. They warm up, and the cold air bottled up over Alaska kind of gets dislodged and drives south and east into Canada, in some cases into the central and eastern U.S. We'll take a look at this. This is a clear signal for a negative EPO index going forward through the next week or two as we progress into the second half of the month of March. That says Alaska warms up, a ridge builds up over Alaska. Some of that cold air that's been situated up in that part of the world will be dislodged, moving into Canada, perhaps into the central and eastern U.S., at least at times, over the next couple of weeks. Well, one other signal we'd like to take a look at this time of the year during the winter season going into the spring season, what's going on in the stratosphere. Whenever there's a stratospheric warming event, that can result in the mid-latitudes getting a cool down. Some of the cold air that normally is situated on top of the world over the North Pole, for example, can get dislodged, move from the higher latitudes to the middle latitudes if there's a stratospheric warming event. And here's the forecast map for 10 days from now, 10 days out, way up at the top of the atmosphere, 10 millibars. There's a stratospheric temperature forecast. And here, just to orient us here, this is the North Pole, right? This circle right here, we're kind of a top-down view. The U.S. is down in this region right here. And here we go. We have a big warm-up coming, predicted by the GFS model, over the stratosphere, over the polar region during the next week to 10 days or so. And the polar vortex that has been residing over the polar region for much of the winter season is kind of dislodged here and moves onto this side, North America side of the North Pole. That too bodes well for the continuation of some cold air outbreaks, certainly across Canada. And again, some of that cold air can make it into the central and eastern U.S. So multiple signs point to the idea that we are not yet into more permanent spring-like weather here in the central and eastern U.S., but that there will be occasional cold air outbreaks right through the remainder of the month of March. Well, let's continue this idea of kind of a bigger picture look at North America over the next couple of weeks. And now we'll look at the 500 millibar height anomaly forecast maps from the ensemble run of the GFS from last night, 0Z. The first thing that pops out, this tremendous ridging now over Alaska into the North Pacific. Again, this is kind of supporting that idea that we saw of a negative EPO. For much of the winter season, there was an upper level trough sitting over Alaska with very, very cold conditions at the surface. Again, one of the coldest years, one of the coldest winters in years in Alaska, but just a tremendous ridge starting to pop up over Alaska. Now let's keep moving forward and kind of keep focused on Alaska too here over the next several days here. So some upper level ridging over the eastern U.S., but the continuation of that upper level, very strong upper level ridging over Alaska, much, much stronger than what's showing up in the eastern U.S. And it tends to push away here maybe a little bit by the early part of next week, but watch what happens. It tends to just rebuild that upper level ridging over Alaska. Now this is about a week from now into next Friday. Similar situation, very strong ridging near or just south of Alaska. And again, there will be a couple of, certainly a couple of cold air outbreaks that can work their way from Canada into the central and eastern U.S. over the next couple of weeks as a result of the dislodging of that cold air that has been sitting over Alaska for the last few months. Well, let's wrap up now by looking at 5-day average of 850 millibar temperature anomalies, again using the 0Z run of the ensemble version of the GFS from last night. This is the current 5-day forecast, days 1 to 5. Right off the bat, notice Alaska, which had been very cold December, January, and February, with that upper level ridging now, very, very strong upper level ridging popping over Alaska. they've turned to the warmer side of normal. Some of that cold air that was bottled up over here has been dislodged into Canada, and let's move forward. This is days 2 to 6. Notice a lot of cold air sitting over Canada, kind of a neutral zone here in the Midwest and Mid-Atlantic region. This is days 2 to 6. Let's keep moving forward here. Alaska remains above normal with that very, very strong upper level ridging. Kind of, excuse me, a cold band here from the southwest U.S. all the way across Canada, all the way into Greenland here. Again, Alaska warms up, but some of that cold air is dislodged to the south and east. Let's move forward now, days 5 to 9. Still kind of holding on to the above normal condition, especially in the southeastern part of the nation. Very extensive area of colder than normal conditions from California all the way into northeastern Canada and Greenland. And by the time we get out to now days 9 to 13, 10 to 14, here we are in the latter stages of March, all the way out to days 11, 15, continuation of relatively warmer than normal conditions near Alaska and colder than normal to its south and east from California all the way throughout much of Canada. Kind of a neutral zone here, warmer than normal across the southeast U.S. And finally, this is the last forecast map, days 12 to 16, that runs from March 24th to March 29th. Look at this, all of Canada below normal, California still below normal, much of the northern U.S., the warmer than normal conditions holding on over the Gulf and maybe the southeast U.S., somewhere in the middle here across the Midwest and Mid-Atlantic region, still a blob of warmer than normal condition over the Aleutian Islands. So big changes for Alaska signal some cold air outbreaks will be coming during the last couple of weeks of March into Canada, and some of that cold air will certainly work its way into the central and eastern U.S. This weekend, for example, this high pressure system that will build across southeastern Canada is kind of a byproduct of this change in the pattern with that cold air up in Canada. We'll certainly see some high pressure systems building to our north, and that certainly will have a cool down effect for the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast U.S. So a lot going on behind the scenes. Again, some cold air outbreaks coming into the central and eastern U.S. right through the month of March. That's it for now. That was a look ahead for the latter half of March. For PerspectiveWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Doria.